Good evening. I am Tabiseng Hadebe. I welcome you all to Mental Health Indaba. Let's talk. My guest this evening is an extremely humble man who works in the bank sector and is currently pursuing a degree in public governance. Wandile Mhlongo, welcome to Mental Health Indaba. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Tabiseng. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I should say it's quite an honor to be sitting here with you this evening.
Thank you. It is a privilege indeed to have you this evening here. Now, today we are speaking about your journey with depression. And now, many of us, most of the time when you hear the word depression, we think only about the mental aspect of things, the dysfunctionality of the cognitive ability, the dysfunctionality of the cortex, and that's what we think depression is all about. Yet you are here to give us a different idea of what depression entails. According to what you have experienced, the depression has some kind of a systematic disease aligned with it. Because now most of the time we think only about the brain, what's happening mentally, yet we do not think that depression can be linked with what happens to us physically. Now, before we tap into your journey with depression or how you got to be diagnosed, can you briefly tell us, how were you born? Where were you born? How were you brought up? Who is Wandile?
Thank you so much for that honor, Tabiseng. If I can just take you back, Wandile was born and raised in a small village in KwaZulu-Natal called Msinga. That's where I was born, and I started my lower primary there. But I was actually staying with my grandmother and auntie that side. So my father and my mother actually were in Johannesburg for work purposes so that they could take care of us. So that's actually just how I was brought up, staying with granny and auntie and cousins actually. So we're just brought up by them. We're brought up by them. So that's the sort of arrangement that, we actually lived under. But it was a really, really great time. Even though then I actually longed to stay with my parents, but I still, quite enjoyed staying at home with my grandmother and my auntie in KZN. That's just how I was brought up. That's where it all began.
So you stayed with your granny and your aunt until what age before you went to live with your parents permanently in Johannesburg?
So I stayed with my grandmother in KZN until I actually completed primary, and I believe that was 2010. So I only moved this side to Johannesburg to actually further my education, which is to start secondary school. So that's when then I started living with my father and mother this side in 2011, beginning of the year.
Now, that's a big transition. Moving from a village to a big city, and moving from living with auntie and granny to moving with your parents. How was that transition like for you?
It was quite a challenge in Tabiseng, to be honest with you, because the way I was brought up in KZN, you can just imagine, was a bit different from how, the fast life that we actually are used to in Joburg this side. So I had just to, to get used to how things are done this side, and then unlearn a few things, from what I was taught at home, but even though still keeping, to those core values that I was taught by my grandmother and aunties that side in KZN. But the adjustment was quite a challenge. And you can just imagine even, school-wise, the level of education that I'd gotten in KZN was a bit different from what I just got exposed to when I started moving this side. So it took me a few months to just get on my feet and find myself, but I eventually got there.
Now let's talk about the home setting, the family setting. How was that like? How was home in Johannesburg with mommy and daddy? And how was that like? Finally being a family with your biological parents staying together. How was that like?
Ntabi saying, I guess for any child, you know, who had never actually previously gotten an opportunity to live with their parents, it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true. Initially, honestly, it was the only thing that I looked forward to. I remember in 2010, when I actually got the news that I'm going to be moving to Joburg, I was so excited. For the rest of the year, I just focused on my schoolwork so that I actually impressed them with great marks at school, so that when I come this side, I just be the best son that I can be, because I had been looking forward to that opportunity for a very long time. So it was a dream come true at first.
Now, was it easy for you, or was it quite difficult for you to relate with your parents on an emotional level, because you were not used to them? So now you get to live with them, see them every day. How the emotional connection, was it instant, or was it something that gradually the both of you with your parents you had to work on gradually on a daily basis?
That was something that actually, you know, that I had to teach myself. And Tabi saying it didn't happen instantly, you know. I had actually not lived for them for, you know, for a very long time. But just because I was excited, I was really just trying my best to find that connection with both of them, even though it wasn't the same. So it was easier to actually connect with mom than it was with dad. But I kept trying, you know, I just, you know, by even getting good marks, you know, just being a well-behaved child at home, you know, just to try and sort of to build that up. I just did all I could at the time to build it up, because it was just, there was a gap. Yeah, there was a gap. Can you hear me, Tabi Singh?
Hello, Wandile.
I think we just had a technical glitch.
You're breaking up. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. You were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was just a technical glitch there.
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you say you were quite close with your mother than you were with your dad?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, I was. Can you hear me, Tabi Singh?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, definitely. It was easier to connect with mom than it was with dad. Even though I tried, you know, I went all out, you know, to actually establish that relationship with my father. But I would say that it took longer than it actually did with mom. It was, you know, a bit easy to connect with mom.
Okay, I understand. Now, before I get to you being diagnosed with depression, how was the relationship between mom and dad? Did they have a normal relationship, would you say? Or what happened? What was going on, according to what you viewed at that young age?
Well, as a child, and Tabi saying initially, you know, I thought that my parents had a normal relationship. At least that's actually what I wished for, because I knew that it was then going to be of great benefit to myself, you know, if, you know, things are just well at home. With time, you know, I actually, unfortunately, learned that, you know, it wasn't a normal relationship, you know, it really, you know, it was that sort of a relationship that, as a child, I couldn't understand initially, but I could at some point pick that there's something that's not going right between the both of them. So it wasn't a normal relationship. And I think that I got to learn that, you know, the first 2-3 months of actually staying with them, I could, you know, pick certain things, how they engaged with each other and all of that. And I could, you know, pick that there is something wrong, even though I couldn't put my finger to it initially. But honestly, the signs were there. I could now see that, you know, actually there's something that's not right that's happening.
You know, most of the time when boy children grow up without father figures, most of them long to have fathers in their lives, just to have that bond with their dads and experience a father relationship, father-son relationship. Now, with you, was that something that existed between you and your dad? Would you like maybe sit at home in the lounge, watch TV, and have a conversation, a chat, like a son and a father?
Tabi saying, like any son, I told you, I longed for that opportunity to have a father-son relationship with my dad. Honestly, I guess personally how I actually tried to build that, because I could see that things were not working out. Performing at school and just being the best child that I could be was actually my attempts to reach out to my dad to try and build the gap, because we did not have that at all. It just didn't exist. And I kept hoping and hoping and hoping and hoping. And I remember at one stage, I think I was doing grade 10, if I'm not mistaken. I remember saying to a friend of mine, I think my life would have been better if I was actually born without a father, because I just couldn't see, the whole point, because we were just, we couldn't connect at all. We just did not click at all.
Now, you said something that's very interesting, that you performed academically. So did he, at some degree, validate that performance? Did you feel that he embraced the good results that you achieved? Did you feel embraced? Did you feel celebrated? Do you think that you made him proud? Was there ever a moment whereby he showed you that he's proud of you?
Hardly, Ntabi saying hardly. The only time that I actually remember was only when I was in primary school. I remember there was a time I had actually performed very well at school. I gotten certificates, for excellence in a lot of things. And I remember he took me to, I think we went to ShopRite, if I'm not mistaken, and he bought me this car. And, then I felt. But as I grew older, I think the gap just it kept on, increasing between the two of us, and I could not feel it at all. Only mom at that time would really affirm me and show me that she's proud of all my efforts. But I would hardly see it from him, and it used to bother me. I'm not gonna lie, it really used to bother me, because I felt like I had to do it for him, but he was not giving me any feedback.
You said something that I feel that it's an alerting concern. I mean, I'm a parent, and it's a hard pill to swallow. For you said that you wished at some point that life would have been better if you did not have a father. Where did that comment stem from? Where did that belief stem from? What caused you to say something like that?
Now, Ntabi saying, you have to understand that, the environment at home, as time went, it just, home was a very cold place, because of, the relationship they both had as my parents. They were, always fighting every day. There was just no day where we're a normal family and we'll be at peace. And if that happens, it will be a shocker. You'll be like, how long will this last for? So you would know that if we are happy today and everything looks fine, we know that tomorrow we're gonna, wake up to something different. And you just knew that it wasn't going to last. So, the frustration of just growing up in a place that you had hoped that could be home for you, and you're now, living into this reality that it's not home. It's just going to be a very cold place every day. That's where that comment actually came from. I just felt that it was better, because I felt that he just made our lives difficult. That's just where the comment came from, to say, I just wished at some point, I'm just being very honest with you, I wished at some point that, when I was actually born, I was just told that your father actually passed on, when you were 2, or all of that. So that's where all that came from.
Would you say that you despised your father for how he treated your mother? Or did you despise him for something that he said to you, or the way that he treated you directly? Or was the resentment, did the resentment stem from how he treated your mother? Or was he treating you the same way as he treated your mother? Where did the resentment for your father come from? Was it you being the protective son for your mom, or where does it come from? Is it personal or is it your mom?
I think Tabi saying the resentment came from, both, to be quite honest. I had that resentment for how he treated my mother because, as a child and, the older I grew, I began to ask myself, how does one actually treat someone that they love? How do you claim that you love someone and you treat them the way I saw my dad treating my mom? And then again, how he also treated me as a son, it also built, some resentment in me because it's like we're treated the same way in a way, because whenever there'll be a fight at home, I'll always be caught up, trust me.
Now, you have siblings and you are the oldest. Did you always feel obliged to protect your younger siblings from witnessing all the commotion and the noise and the quarrels in the house?
Definitely, in Tabi saying, I always felt that sense of responsibility as an older brother. But, I eventually got to a point where, I realized that there was only so much I could do because we were both victims of whatever that was happening at home. And, sometimes you just try your best, but it wasn't good enough because they would also, experience, some sort of, treatment from dad that you would be concerned as as an elderly person to say, but you wouldn't do this in front of kids. So I couldn't protect them from such things. So I just got to a point where I got tired and I just saw that there was nothing else that I could do. And I guess at that point in time, the only suggestion that made sense was to actually just get them to a different environment. And eventually my twin sisters, that I was actually living with at that time, they actually moved back to KZN because it was actually also a concern, that I had with mom to say, I think it's also best for them to just move to KZN because, things were just getting worse and worse each time. So we were just concerned.
Now, when the twin sisters moved to KZN, did you, within that, before even they had to leave, did you feel some sort of resentment towards your mom for not leaving that particular situation, just packing her bags and taking her kids and moving away from this man?
Definitely, in Tabi saying, I think I've said this before, but I had resentment and I also had understanding because I understood how my mom was brought up. I understood the background that she came from, that, for her, it was a taboo, to actually walk away from all of this that she had, the dream that everyone actually wants back at home. So I understood, but at the same time, there were actually times where I just could not understand how she could bear so much. And I was always concerned to say, does she see the effect that it's actually having on all of us as kids? It was a concern, but it was something that we hardly had conversations about. But I guess that she also could pick that. I was concerned about that.
Now, at some stage, you unfortunately witnessed your dad physically beating your mother up. Take us through that day. What was happening? How did it all begin? And how did that affect you?
Sure, Tabi saying, where do I start? And it's amazing that I still have vivid memories of that day. It was a normal day for us. A normal day was any day. But I remember I was just getting dressed for school. It was in the morning, I think around 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was almost about to leave the house, and I had screams that were actually coming from their bedroom, and I was concerned. So the last time I actually had spoken to my mom was just a few minutes ago. She was busy actually getting my twin sisters ready for school because they were still attending their primary that time. And now I'm just hearing these screams that are actually coming from their bedroom, and I eventually knew that something was wrong, right? I knew that something was happening, and because I actually recall that they had a fight the previous day. So I definitely knew that something was wrong. But what actually happened to me that day, I still ask myself and I still try to comprehend it. And it doesn't make sense because I froze in the moment, in Tabi saying. I froze because I just didn't know. I found myself crying at that time. And, you know, I just didn't know what to do because it was my first time experiencing such. Yes, I had, you know, previously suspected that you know, they had, you know, I had physical exchanges and all of that before, but I had not seen it, you know. It was just usually the words that would be thrown around, you know, in the house by my dad and all of that. But that day was something different for me, and I don't think that I'll ever actually, you know, forget that memory. So yeah, you know, they were actually fighting then. And I remember now, I woke up, I think just a few, maybe a minute or two. I had, there was a lady who actually stayed, she was a family friend. She stayed in our yard. She was actually knocking at the door because she actually had the screams that were actually coming. And I think that's when I actually just woke up at that time. And I had not seen that my dad actually locked the door before, you know, it all started. So she was actually knocking and, you know, banging at the door. And I then had to quickly rush and open the door for her so that she could actually intervene because I just froze in Tabi thing. And for the longest of time, I really struggled to forgive myself because I felt like you know, I should have done something. I should have jumped in there and do something, but I froze in Tabi saying. I froze, and it really took me a while to just get over that memory. And I remember, you know, going to school that day. I was very traumatized, and I don't think I ate for a day or two after actually experiencing that incident. Well, the family friend intervened, and then, you know, they resolved. For that time, you know, they were able to resolve things, but life still happened. You know, we got back to our family, and, you know, it was still different, and it just kept happening.
You did not even confront your mom about what happened at any stage at that point?
We did not get a chance to actually speak about that in Tabi saying, because I remember my mom actually had to, she packed her bags, I had a few things, and she actually went to her sister to actually try and find herself at that time. So we initially, you know, could not speak about it because when I came back, I think from school or something, she was not there anymore, but she had spoken to me to say she will go and visit her sister for some time to cool off.
How did you feel about what your dad did to your mom that day?
I was very disturbed in Tabi saying, I'm not gonna lie, but I guess a part of me just also was expecting it at some point to happen because, you know, when things are building up, I could just see that things were just building up. They were not, you know, able to resolve their differences as a couple. And, you know, I just still, again, couldn't understand how you could, you know, say that at some point that you love someone and then you later on treat them the way I saw my dad treating my mom. I just could not understand at all how, you know, it all happened. But, you know, I remember we used to have these conversations with my mom to say, you know, there's something wrong with your dad, but it was just something that we would just laugh about. And, you know, we never really, you know, saw initially how serious that was. But, you know, I was very disturbed for a long time. And, but I had to be a child at that time, you know. I remember there was a time I was so angry that I said to myself, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm angry. You know, and well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do any of that. Unfortunately, I had to carry on.
Now, take us to you being diagnosed with depression. How did that transpire? Is it because of all the things that were happening at home? What triggered that? What happened? Was there a specific trauma that you dealt with apart from what happened from home, or is this just everything that happened from home just became overwhelming and you just couldn't deal? What happened?
Most definitely in Tabi saying, you know, I got overwhelmed, and you know, initially I had no understanding of what depression was and what anxiety was and all of that. And I just think that I got, you know, so overwhelmed because in 2015, I completed my matric. And fortunately, in 2017, I think I started my first job. So I think it all just, overwhelmed me, having to balance this life at home and, the life at work. The pressure just, became, overwhelming, because I remember, there used to be times where I was actually, at work. I would find myself thinking, I just wish that I can actually, stay at work until the following day, because I never looked forward to going back home because it was just toxic.
Wow. So now you being depressed, what happened? Did you go to a doctor? What happened? What happened?
Sure, Tabi's saying that's a very long story. But yeah, so what happened in, I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken, around October, I started having, these pains in my heart. I started having these heartaches that I never understood for the first time. I never understood where they were coming from. They just kept coming and coming. And I remember having a conversation with my mom saying, I actually need to go and see a doctor, but well, I was working at that time, so it wasn't just easy to go to a doctor and all of that. But I remember waking up, going to the office, and I got to the office. They just got worse as the day went, and I had a conversation with my manager at that time, and she actually allowed me to go home because she was also concerned. Well, she also partly knew what was happening with me, in my personal life. So she said, please do go see a doctor. I did, and I think I got there around 2 p.m. and I eventually got a chance to see a doctor after waiting in the queue for a very long time. And I got the shock of my life, and Tabi saying, the doctor just said, Wandile, can I please see the rest of the patients in my practice? And can I please see you at last, because I want to talk to you? I was so confused because I was expecting to get, some painkillers or whatever and pack and go home. But that wasn't the case. I was just very confused. And well, I went back. Believe me, I actually saw the doctor again. I think it was to 6 p.m. in the evening that day. And I was very confused. I was frustrated. The weight was just killing me, because now I thought maybe there's something you saw, but I was like, but he never even, touched me. He never actually examined me physically to check anything. I was like, what could be wrong? Did he see something? I was very worried. But yeah, I got, to sit with the doctor, and he was very brief with me, and he just said, whatever you're going through, it is not physical. There's nothing wrong with your heart. You're not having any heart failures or any heart attacks. And he said, what is happening in your life, Wandile? And at that point in Tabiseng, I actually could not even put it into words. And he saw that I couldn't do that. And he was like, you know what? I'm not an expert in this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to write you a number. There's people that you can speak to that can help you, because these heartaches are a sign that there's something wrong psychologically. And that was new news to me. I was just confused. So he wrote, I remember I think it was Lifeline's numbers. And he gave me that piece of paper, and he never even actually gave me any painkillers. Tabi saying he never did. I was very confused. And I remember I went home and I was just confused. And I had a conversation with my mom, but at that time, dad will come home and then we have to stop, whatever conversations we're having because it's home and all of that. We just couldn't talk much about it. But yeah, and Tabi saying that was just the first time. And as time went, well, let me just tell you, to be honest, because I was really not so educated about mental health. I never actually called them. It never made sense to me as to how I could, just call a stranger and say, my name is Wandile, I'm going through all this and all that. I just could not even put it into words. The idea was so alien, Tabi saying. Yeah, so that's just where, the whole journey started with my diagnosis of depression. But now I wasn't at that point really aware that I have depression, Tabi saying. And later on, beginning of 2018, I again, I fell sick again. I started having stomach ulcers. And I remember going to a doctor. Now I went to a different doctor because now I was afraid, of going to the same doctor, because I knew that it was definitely going to ask me to say, did you call these people and did you speak to them and all of that. I had to
And you
go
never
and
made
see it. Exactly. I never did. I never mentioned all of that. So I just went to a doctor. I explained what what was happening. I was just getting these pains in my diaphragm and all of that. I couldn't explain it and all of that. Well, he eventually diagnosed me of stomach ulcers. And I remember asking him, and I said, what could be the cause? He said, well, usually there's two causes. It's either you eat a lot of spicy food or you are stressed. I was concerned in Pakistan. I was concerned. It rang a bell. But at that time, again, I was not ready. I guess I was not ready, to face everything that had happened to me. And I just,
after
took medication.
even after hearing that for the second time.
Exactly.
The
Even
stress
after
issue for the
hearing
second
that. Exactly. I was not ready in Pakistan. I was not in a space to really, talk with a stranger and all of that. But I was concerned. I'm going to be honest with you. And I remember having a conversation with my mom. And I guess we both knew what was happening, because I remember actually telling her, because actually when I was doing matric, there was another violent incident that happened at home between the both of them. And I remember after completing matric, I had this conversation with my mom. I said, when we spoke last year, you said you wanted to pack your bags and leave. But the only reason why you're not doing that is because you're concerned about me and you're thinking that I might not make it if you actually are going to leave whilst I was at a critical stage of my life, completing matric. Now it's a year after, and things are just getting worse between the both of you. Why are you still staying? We had that conversation with my mom, at that point after I'd actually seen the doctor for the second time. But well, we never got to any resolution about that. I guess she had hope in her that things are just going to get better with time, but things were just getting worse. And again, in saying, I kept, feeling sick and all of that. And I remember in 2018, I think I exhausted all my medical aid funds because I had to go to see a doctor again. And I remember at some stage, I had to be referred to a hospital and all of that due to those stomach ulcers that I had. And I remember this one doctor saying, I think you might need to go in for an operation, saying. I was so scared. I was so scared, knowing what could really be the cause of everything that I was going through at that time. But well, fortunately, I got a second opinion from my doctor who just said that, no, there's this treatment that I can give you. Take this, it's going to help you and all of that. You might not need, you might not need to go under the knife. And that's how I actually, escaped that one. But I kept failing. I just kept, being sick and all of that. And I had to, keep going to doctors until we got to a point where my doctor just said, Wandile, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I've been prescribing meds. And I also remember there was also something that I left there. I started actually struggling to sleep at night. I started struggling to sleep at night and I couldn't understand. And I remember my doctor said to me, I'm going to prescribe, something that is going to help you, but I can't, prescribe something stronger because I'm not a specialist. So I kept taking those meds and painkillers and all of that, but it just kept coming back. It kept coming back. And that's how then eventually my doctor said, I can't do this anymore.
So after he said that, did he refer you or what happened?
So after he said that in Pakistan, he then just said, I'm going to refer you to a psychologist that I know that you just, well, you know what happened? My second doctor now said, Wandile, I also think there's something happening with you. What is happening? What is happening? It's, you've been, coming to me for a very long time and you just seem not to be getting better. Or I said, Doc, there is something happening, but, I just don't know how to put it in words. And that's when he said, I'll need then to refer you to a psychologist that maybe you can speak with, and all of that. That's how it started. Then I had to go and see the psychologist. I remember, I had to take time off from work, see the psychologist. And if I'm not mistaken, this was around 1 or 2 p.m. I got there and I just didn't know what to expect. You know, I was all closed up. I still didn't think type of thing that I was ready. You know, I was ready for whatever that was, you know, going to happen from then onwards. But yeah, we had what was supposed to be a 1 hour session that ended up becoming 2 hour session. And at the end of our session, Tabi saying something, you know, happened. My psychologist actually picked up her phone. He said, Wandile, can I have your manager's numbers? And I was like, whoa, what is happening? I did, I gave her the numbers and, you know, she called and she said, hi, this is Dr. Sorin. So I'm calling to inform you that I am actually booking Wandile off until further notice. You're going to receive further communication from a psychiatrist. I'm all confused and Tabi saying, like, she did not even give me a chance at that time, but I was actually not even aware how much I actually needed help at that point in time. And then she also said, can I have your mom's number? I gave her the numbers, you know, she called her and she said, Mom, where are you? My mom, I think she was actually, she was at the mall at that time. She told her, please get Wandile some snacks and pajamas because he is going to be admitted. That's how the journey started.
And upon moving from the psychologist's office to go into a psychiatric institution, what were your thoughts? Where were you mentally? What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind?
Tabi saying at that time, I think I was so much in a, you know, I was frustrated to be honest with you, because as I said, things at home were not getting better. I remember at some point, you know, I had this conversation with my mom. I said, you know, since now that I'm working, I think it's going to be best for me to actually find my own space. I remember having that conversation, you know, before it later on happened unplanned, but I remember having a conversation with her saying that because things are just getting worse here at home and I cannot take it, and it's just affecting me, you know, in all aspects of my life. You know, even at work, and Tabi saying I got affected. I just kept on, you know, having to have, you know, performance coaching and all of that. But I wasn't really aware that I was being affected, but that's just what was happening at that time. I was just not coping. I was not in a good space at all. So that's just, you know, I just got overwhelmed from home and work and all of that. So I think it was just high time that it happened the way it did.
Wow. And how were you received?
Sorry, you're breaking, Tabi Seng.
I'm saying, how received as an institution, and what did you think about it? Because most of the time we think about psychiatric institutions as things where people actually lost their identity. And we mad at to belong in those institutions. We grew up thinking that people go out the lives of institutions like that. But now most of the time we find many people going into psychiatric institutions because of depression. Now, how were you to be able to adapt to the environment, all the sessions that come in that specific environment?
Tabi saying, you know, I remember, you know, at some point, I was initially very worried, you know, about how I was going to be received and all of that. And I think that, you know, all of that came from not really having an understanding of mental health and all of that. You know, I remember being ashamed at some point, even of telling people that actually I've been admitted, not in a medical ward, but I've been admitted in a psychiatric ward. Because honestly, in our community, if I say such, people just think you've lost it, you know? People think you've lost it. And I was really worried to say, how is the journey going to be? Is it really what people have been making it to be? Or is there something more? Is there a different aspect, you know, of that? And, you know, fortunate enough, Tabi saying, I got admitted in a psychiatric institution under, you know, a private institution. And honestly, I'm just going to be honest. My experience, you know, was really, you know, it was not what actually I had in mind. I was really made to understand how did I get there and all of that, and how actually am I to find healing, you know, for myself. So the experience from what I actually had in mind was it was different in Tabiseng. Honestly, it was different. You know, the sessions that I kept on having, because I remember I would see, you know, 4 different specialists. I would see a psychologist, I'll see a psychiatrist, I'll see a social work, I'll see an occupational therapist. All of them just worked together as a team, you know, to make me understand that I'm there to get better. That was the whole point. And, you know, I can actually get better, if I can put it that way.
At this particular time, where dad is coming to see you, mom and dad coming to see you, do they come together to come and visit you? What is happening at home? What happening with the family support? What's happening?
Tabiseng, I think you are breaking. I'm not sure if I got that. I'm not sure if it's your connection or mine.
Okay. I'm saying while you were in the psychiatric institute point in mom and did you, or where did you get the most support from? Was it more from your mom than it was from your dad, or did they jointly come and visit you, or what was happening?
So I remember Tabiseng, I think the following day after I had been admitted, I got a visit from both of them. But now, you know, things then, you know, they took a different turn as soon as now, you know, it was all in the out, you know, the reason why I was there in the first place. So at that point in time when, you know, I remember my dad came and, you know, everyone from KZN at home was concerned. They all wanted to speak to me over the phone. And I could just feel that everyone wanted to give a reason as to why they thought I was there in the first place. And no one really had an understanding of what I was going through. So initially, or rather maybe for the first day, I should say, I got a visit from both of them. But as soon as, you know, it was all in the out that I'm there because of this situation that has been happening for a very long time at home, that they all knew, especially my immediate family knew, then things took a different turn. That's when, you know, the support got less and less. I think at a, you know, towards, you know, me being, you know, discharged, I just only heard from mom. That's the only person who actually came to visit or even called to check how I was doing, because as soon as it was all in the out, I think the family felt like they've been exposed in a way. You know, I think they just felt like this, whatever that was happening between my mom and dad, they felt that, you know, it just got out of control, and they still tried to control the situation, because now, you know, obviously at that time, you know, everyone was going to know what was happening. The reason why I was actually even admitted was going to be known by everyone else that knew me. So they tried to contain it by hiding the true reason as to why I was admitted. But unfortunately, you know, it was too late. It had to come out.
So now I know during the point in time where in the schedule, did your father participate in sessions?
Sorry?
I was saying, I know at some point in students, there's a time where family members are going to participate in these sessions. Your father lived in these sessions.
I do remember that time in Tabiseng, and I think this was actually a suggestion that was made by you know, my social work at that time. So she just said, because now she was starting to understand the dynamics of how it all happened, and she understood that I was living with both parents. So she made a suggestion that how about, you know, we get dad involved, you know, and it was then quite obvious that dad was not, you know, willing to be part, because he actually felt that he was being blamed for everything that had happened. So I remember there was a time where actually I received a task from my psychologist. He actually asked me to write a letter, just to, pour my heart eventually, as to what actually got me there, how, I actually, got to that place. So when I actually wrote that letter, the letter was, but for my mom initially. I think I was still going to have another task to write a letter to dad. But then what then happened, they actually read that letter together, because there was an auntie of mine that actually came beside, to actually check on me, even though she didn't come to visit, but she was there at that time, and the letter was read. Now, because I think I had poured out everything that had happened, dad took it as a personal attack, if I can put it that way, of which it wasn't, but I was just being honest about everything that had happened, what was frustrating me, and all of that. So when then my social worker made that suggestion, dad just, was not into, coming into those sessions. So he never showed up.
But there was one specific day where he decided to visit you. Take us through the day. What happened?
Ntabi saying, I still remember the day very well. It was the 9th of August, public holiday. I remember the day before, actually, I had just spoken to my mom. I told her that because I was still trying to process what I was also going through, at that time. I said, Mom, I'm not in a space to just see anyone at this point. Can you please give me tomorrow to myself, which is the 9th? And she, she perfectly understood, because there was also a time where she came with a family friend to see me. I told them that I'm not in a good space and all of that. They dropped, whatever snacks they had brought me that day, and they left. So the same thing happened, but my dad never called. He just showed up on the 9th. And I remember I was just lying on my bed and watching TV at that time. Having just thinking, and just trying to figure out where my life was going from there onwards. And he just showed up with a cousin of mine, and I still remember getting up from my bed, and I actually went to them. I said, Dad, I'm not in a space right now to see anyone. I'm really not. And I remember I walked out, and I was just trying to catch some air outside. While what then happened, I collapsed, Ntabi saying. And then I woke up in my bed. I think it was an hour later, if I still remember correctly. And my whole body was actually shivering, and I was now being attended by nurses and all of that.
Do you feel that he triggered you collapsing? Was it a trigger because of seeing your dad? Did everything just came back, and it was a reminder of why are you here? And that's the solutions.
It was definitely a trigger for me, Ntabi saying, it just brought it all back. It reminded me of how, actually I found myself in this place to even begin with. And I guess, there was something that happened again. When he actually walked in there, I didn't see my father. I saw a man who caused it all. I saw, this monster at that time, if I can be quite honest. I did not see my dad. I'm not gonna lie. I saw something different. And I guess it's just the reason why I then collapsed in Ntabi saying. It was a reminder.
You something that's heartbreaking. You saw him more than when you saw him. Did you at this point, because you are isolated, at a point where you look yourself in the mirror and you're afraid of becoming the man that he is, or that you are ashamed of being a son?
Sure, Ntabi saying, to be honest, I had that fear that, I was going to turn out like him. and a part of me was ashamed of being his son. I think that's where actually even the feeling of even thinking that if I was born without a father, my life would have been better. It grew also from there, because well, it happens that I actually look like him physically, and for the longest of time I found it difficult to separate myself from him, because I was like, what if I also turn out like this? I was greatly concerned, definitely.
Before you were discharged, in fact, at a total healing. Now get discharged, you get to go to the environment that gate state previously working into the institution. Now, when you were discharging back home, first day of getting back home, like having you home.
I missed the last part of your question in Tabiseng. I think it's the connection.
Okay, I was saying when you actually got discharged from the institution, I would believe you have found healing, you have found yourself again. But now the tricky part is that when you move from the institution, how was it? And firstly, who came to fetch you when you got discharged? And what happened when you got home? How was home? How was that environment like? Did it change because you went to a psychiatric institution? Did they understand you better? What happened? How was your relationship with your dad? Was it still the same, or what happened?
Tabiseng, I think that, when I was now discharged, I had not really found healing, but I had found a sense of, of hope and direction on what then I needed to do, so that, I could, go on with life. So, from all the, the sessions I was having, it then became quite obvious that since I'm a child and there's nothing I can actually do to change my dad, there's nothing I could do to actually make him a better man. I couldn't actually make him to change for me. So it then became obvious that when I got discharged, I couldn't go back to that environment, because it wasn't going to help me in my healing journey at all. So what then happened was that I was fetched by my mom when I got discharged. And I remember the day before we had actually a conversation, and even in other days, where I talked to her and I told her that, Mom, unfortunately, I know that is, it's going to be very difficult for you, because you'd like to actually take care of me right now so that I get on my feet. But, the circumstance didn't allow. And after also speaking to my pastor at that time, it was obvious that I couldn't go home. And my pastor then just generously, with his wife, my late pastor, may his soul rest in peace, offered to actually to accommodate me for time being, so that I could actually later on find my own space and all of that. So I couldn't go back home, Tabiseng. The day I got discharged, I went home, all my bags were packed, I had to just pack and leave.
Now, you mentioned your pastor. Now, in all that was happening in your home, and you actually being admitted into a psychiatric ward, were you religiously and spiritually? Where were you? Did you ever resent God? Did you ever think that your faith at some point was failing you? It's not working for you because it brought you into all this chaos?
Not at all, in Tabiseng, not at all. And I think that is actually because I had, previously or in the past had, sort of counseling sessions where I sat with my pastor, we'll talk about what I'm actually going through at a personal level. And, he just had, this insight from a spiritual point of view, that, that got me to a different state of mind, of which I believe that if I did not have that, I think I was going to, be going through that period of, resenting God or asking God, why was all of that happening to me? But I think I had a better understanding. He made me understand that, I was going through what I was going through for a reason, and God has a purpose. And not only that, that I'm also going to overcome and be able to help others, in the near future. So I was at a different, space because of him.
So moving in with a pastor, a different environment altogether. How was the setting like at that house compared to home? And how were you received the rest of the family?
Tabi saying, I remember I was so scared. I'm just going to be honest, because I'd never, stayed there at all. It was just a new environment for me. And I was just concerned, even though I knew that it was my pastor's house and all of that, that I could find love. But, to be honest, I was a bit concerned at first as to how am I going to be received, And again, I guess it also came from feeling like a bit of a burden and all of that initially. But I was saying I would never forget the first day, when I got there, I was received with warm hands. And I don't think that even today I can fully put it into words. The feeling, I can't. It was very warm, Tabi saying. It was so much at home. And I remember thinking to myself, this is what I've been longing for all my life. Home. Had been longing for that environment for a very long time. And that was due to how I was actually received. And, also looking into how, my pastor, interacted with, with her wife and her kids. It was a different perspective, from what I had actually seen at home. And, I was just, picking and seeing the difference. And it helped me a lot, because I was like, this is the type of man that I actually want to be. And I had that example, in front of me. And it's something that I had been longing to see in my father that I never saw.
So you had a father figure that you were longing for.
Definitely, in Tabi saying, I can say that, when I looked at him, I thank God, because I felt like he closed a certain gap in my life that my father couldn't give. I had accepted now that that there wasn't anything I could do to make my father, a different type of a person altogether, so that he becomes the father that I had hoped for. But I had that example in front of me, and it gave me some sense of comfort at that time.
So after staying there for quite some time, what happened? To go back home, what happened?
So after staying there, I think I stayed a month and a half, if not two, because fortunately I was working. I then just stood on my own. I found my own space, and yeah, I was introduced to another new environment. I had to adapt again, to living on my own and all of that. But it was time. I had received all the love and all the care that I needed for at least those early days of getting discharged from a mental health institution.
Now that's terrifying. That's a terrifying aspect of it, because now you come from the institution, moving in with a pastor where there's a perfect family structure. Now to moving to living with yourself, living alone, doing all by. Now for a person who's still finding themselves mentally and otherwise, that's an alerting concern. How did your mom feel about it, and did you cope?
In Tabi saying, it was the scariest time of my life. I'm just going to be honest with you. It really was. I think especially because I was still taking my medication And, some of the side effects, that, I experienced, really, they needed me to have that support. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I had really to stand on my own. And to answer your question about my mom, I remember getting a call from a cousin of mine saying, Wandile, you need to get well, because now your mom is starting to be sick, because she's just concerned about you living alone and having to adjust to this new life, So it was really, a scary time in Tabiseng for me. But, with time and, with the support, from my church, from work and from mom, I eventually, I coped.
Hello.
Hi, Tabiseng, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yes.
So it was quite terrifying.
It was Tabiseng. Honestly, it was the scariest time of my life. It really was. But with the support that I was receiving, from my church family, from work and everyone else that was around me at that time, my girlfriend as well. I found my feet.
Speaking about your girlfriend, witnessing your parents fighting in the manner that they did, how did that affect your mentality concerning romantic relationships?
Tabiseng, for the longest of time, I just chose to be, to not get myself into any relationships, because, I just thought that if this is what relationships are, then I don't want any of that in my life. Initially, that's just how I viewed it. And I also then, I was scared that I would just turn out to be the man that I saw, in my life. So for the longest of time, I chose to be on my own.
Which is justifiable. Honestly, it is. Now, let's talk about, and before I get to that, during this time, your girlfriend knew about what happened to you, knew about the ordeal, or did you have to share everything? And how's that like? How did she receive that?
Well, Tabisem, fortunately for me, I got into a relationship. I don't know how, but whilst I was at the mental institution, so she was there with me every step of the way. So I had not, I actually needed not to explain anything to her, because we had also been fortunately friends before that. So, she just knew everything and was so understanding, and was also, one of my cheerleaders, and, she helped me to find healing and to have hope, when it came to romantic relationships and all of that.
Now, when did you get to a point of total forgiveness? And how long after you've been discharged from the mental institution did you reach out to Dad, or did you speak to your father?
Sure, Tabiseng, I think the first few, I think for about 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, I really battled with forgiveness, and I guess that came from a place of saying that, how do you forgive someone who actually who can't even acknowledge their own mistakes, and who's not even asking for forgiveness? So it was very tricky for me to get to that place. And I just, for the longest of time, I just focused on my life and finding healing and finding who is Wandile, and in the process. So I was not really initially concerned about forgiveness and all of that, even though, yes, I had hoped that maybe one day, I was going to receive a call from him saying, my son, I'm sorry, can we have a meeting and talk about it? But I was really not, worried about it, but it's something that I had hoped for. But on my end, having to go and ask for forgiveness when I knew that I was the victim. I was just not ready for that part.
So what happened? How did you guys meet and reconnect and talk? What happened? Did you reach out? What happened?
So I remember this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, this is 2019, around October. So while it happened that unfortunately now my parents are living separately, my mom also moved and all of that. So in December of 2019, there was a family meeting that happened to try and resolve things between the both of them. It was promising initially, but later on went wrong. So what then happened after that meeting happened, I think Dad felt that he needed to reach out to me after we had not actually, spoken with each other. So I remember I got a call from him. He said, can I come and see you at your place? I want us to talk. Initially, in saying, I'm just going to be honest, I was not ready. I was very angry, actually, because what I was afraid of actually happened. I was afraid that, he's going to reach out, but, I felt that he never understood what he was trying to do. I felt that he was going to ask for forgiveness, but he was not going to, go through with the whole process, because now if we're talking about forgiveness or how we talk about reconciliation, we need to talk about what happened in the past. And I could just see that he was not about that. And unfortunately, I was proven right. We then had a meeting. We had a meeting in February in 2020. And, I was proven right. He just came and said, my son, I'm sorry, but he never really, explained what he was sorry for. And that's just, it went wrong. It went wrong.
Now, after that meeting, what did you conclude? That he's never going to change and I'm just going to stop trying. It's never going to work.
Definitely, Ntabi saying, I remember, and I also felt that I tried on my end to make him understand, because I remember that I had this conversation with him trying to explain the whole reason of the letter that I wrote when I was admitted. And I explained and I said that there was not a personal attack to you. I was trying to make you understand how I got there. And, I just had to be honest about everything. And in me, initially, I had hoped that he was going to understand, because now I took him back. When he just said, son, I'm sorry, I just said, Dad, that's not where it's going to end. That's not how, we are going to fix things. If we really say we want to build our relationship, I need to be honest. I need to, to speak the truth as it is. And I just spoke my heart out. I tried to make him understand. And it was still with hope that, he was going to say, I understand. How do we build going forward? But unfortunately, he never saw what I was trying to do. But the conclusion of our conversation was that I forgive you, but I was never aware that there was not forgiveness at all. It wasn't forgiveness.
You can honestly forgive him. Have you forgiven?
Sorry?
Have you forgiven him now?
At this point, Ntadi saying, I can definitely say that I have fully forgiven, and I'm on a journey to finding healing. So what happened after that meeting that we had, there was just silence for a few months, and I remember I just recently, I don't know what happened to me, but I just found myself having this great understanding of what forgiveness is. And I just, I guess the burden that I was carrying just got heavy, and I saw that I just needed to be the bigger person and let go so that I can find healing. And this is now how I actually view what forgiveness is, or rather what unforgiveness is. Unforgiveness is like you are carrying this load of a burden, And as you try to live your life with unforgiveness, it gets heavier and heavier with time. And when you eventually decide to forgive, it's like you are letting go, of this baggage. You are putting it down, but what you pick up in return, you are picking up healing, you are picking up peace for yourself. So initially, I was waiting for him to come to me and ask for forgiveness, but then the one today now understands and thinks differently, and actually even went further and went to him. And I said, Dad, I'm going to initiate the forgiveness process. And I forgive you for everything. And this time, we're not going to talk about the past because we had a meeting, we've spoken about it before. So what I'm here to do now, when I went to see him, I said, I'm just here to forgive and put things, to rest. But what I'm also then hoping that we can do, I'm hoping that we can start on a clean slate and do things better, because when you know better, you do better. So I believe that at this point, I have forgiven. I can call him anytime I actually feel like, and just to check on him and, go and visit. I'm actually hoping to go and see him tomorrow.
Wow. Now, trauma, pain, it's an excruciating process. And at the ultimate end, when we pursue healing, I believe healing never ends. Healing is intentional. Healing is a daily decision. But as we pursue healing and we go about trying to be the best versions of ourselves, through pain, we really discover who we truly are. So now, is Wandile now? Where is Wandile now mentally? And as Wandile, do you feel that you have pulled out all of your weeds in your garden of life? When you look at your garden of life right now, would you say, I've pulled out all of my weeds? I have started on a clean slate. I understand who I am. I understand where I'm headed, irrespective of what happened to me. I am not going to allow my circumstance to determine where I should be in life. And therefore, I choose to be different. Yes, I do carry my DNA, but I choose not to be here. Yes, I got my own identity now. I have attained this realization. I am more than you. I can become better than you. Where is Wandile now? Mentally?
Ntabi saying, honestly, if we had this conversation, I've said this before, a few months back, or even last year, I was just going to be honest and say, actually, this I wasn't actually even going to be on this platform to begin with, because I had not then pulled out all the weeds. But I do believe that with the forgiveness that has happened, I have pulled out all the weeds, and where I am right now, I'm finding healing. I believe that this is healing. Yes, I initially believed that stepping out of of that environment was going to be healing to me, but I later on discovered that I had to forgive, because no matter what I could do, I am his son. He is my father. So that relationship had to be reconciled. Unfortunately, it's just one of those that need to be fixed. So I do believe that I'm in a better space mentally, and I believe that I can better separate myself from the type of man that my father was, and I'm looking forward to doing better as a man, and as a father, I'm looking forward to that opportunity. And I believe that the whole journey of going through that time that I went through in the mental institution will also actually come in handy, because this is one challenge that we have in our day in Tabiseng, because we go through stuff as men, and we are told as society that we are not supposed to be honest with our feelings. We're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to just keep it all in. We then turn out to be these monsters that we see today. We see the cases of gender-based violence in our days. We see the cases of rape that are happening, and it all speaks to how messed up we are as men. So I believe that getting counseling is vital, to really becoming a better man. It's not just enough to say, I'm going to do better, because you then don't understand how that whole upbringing has affected you psychologically. And you find yourself turning into something that you also can't even recognize. That was my fear at some point, but I believe that where I am right now, with everything I've gone through, I have, I have found healing, and I am in a better space. I am still going through healing even today.
You said something that's I find it to be very profound, that society deems men to be the strong individuals that are not supposed to be vulnerable, that are not supposed to cry. And it's very sad because it affects men so much. And even we as women, we do that to our partners. Men up, you're supposed to be strong. We need order, you have to be strong. Yeah. And this just sets the tone quite differently, that men are people too. Men have emotions. Men go through a lot also. So we have to be more accommodating and more understanding. Having said that, there is a young one dealer right now going through all this chaos within the family, and he does not know what to do. There is a young one dealer who's a girl who also doesn't know what to do, how to help her mother going through this ordeal. What can you say to those two individuals? What would your advice be?
Ntabi Singh, I believe that it all starts with loving ourselves and being actually just even recognizing the fact that where you are, you need help. You need help. That is always the first step. That is always the first step. Personally, it took me a while, to recognize that I needed to get help. But, for any other person out there, do get help. There's nothing to be ashamed of being admitted in a mental institution. If it has gotten to that point, love yourself enough to say, I need help. I believe that is the first step. Love yourself. That is just the first step. That is, everything else would work itself out. But what you can do on your end is to cry out for help. And I believe that there are so many platforms, even in the public space, that are actually, mental health platforms, that are available, to our youth. You just reach out, cry out for help, speak to someone who can, connect you to, people that can actually help you. That's just the place to start, Ntabi Singh. The rest would work itself later.
Great advice. Yes. Now I want you to speak to the parents. I'm a mother. I'm raising two boys. What can you say to parents when they are interacting with their partners or spouses? How does our interaction or the relationship that we have with each other affect children? I mean, you've shown us, you've just enlightened us on that. And what can you say to parents about allowing children to witness quarrels, allowing children to witness physical domestic violence, actually? So what can you say? What would your advice be to parents? Speak to parents right now.
Ntabi Singh, what I would say to parents, there's this interesting study that I actually stumbled upon, and it was done by a certain psychologist, and it really it shook me, to be quite honest, and it all just takes it all back, and that actually speaks about this. I didn't know that there was something called trauma in the womb. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before. But basically, when the female figure gets pregnant, how you interact with your partner, that actually affects the child. That's where it all starts. it starts there. I might not be putting it, the way the psychologist would, but that's, that's a study that really shook me, that there's something that is called trauma in the womb. And what I would like parents to understand is that words are powerful. Words carry power, words can build, words can destroy. And they have to understand that how you interact with your partner greatly affects the child. Whether you are saying it or you are not saying it, it affects the child. So I went through that, and you don't want to find yourself in a space where your child blames you because of their poor self-esteem, how they view themselves, and all of that. That is where it all comes from. And this actually happened. I saw it. Whenever my mom and dad would actually be fighting, I'll be caught up. I'll be caught up.
That's always the case.
Exactly. All those things, parents really need to be wise when it comes. They really need to, and I guess Nthabi is saying, as a Black community, I think we should start normalizing, visiting psychologists, even if you don't feel like there's something wrong, just to check in with self. Go in with your partner, have a session and all of that. I believe that all those are really going to help us, because there's just so much to learn. There's so much that, we are not aware of as the Black community when it comes to mental health. And everything that we are seeing in our nation today has started in families. The mess that we find ourselves in starts at home. So if parents can be educated about all these things, I think that, the narrative would change. Because, I always looked at this when it came to us as men, that, the cycle of gender-based violence and the rape that we see in our country is something that is transgenerational. The brokenness that we see now has been passed down to us as men. It's been passed down from our forefathers. And until we create these platforms where we can talk as men, be honest with our feelings, only then we can start to build our nation. Only then we can start to, live in better spaces. So it's really important that, we get exposed to these conversations and these platforms.
I love what you said when you speak about the gravity of words. Words are very important. And sometimes as parents, we say quite hurtful things. And I always say that words are seeds. They grow. As the child grows, they grow. So if you do go back to rectify what you have said out of anger, those words are going to remain. They're not going to be erased. They're going to remain in the child's mind. And sometimes focus on what our parents say, or even if we become cautious of what we say around our kids, sometimes what is not said as well. I've learned that just now from you, what is not said, that I have tried my best to achieve X, Y, and Z, yet you never validated me as a parent. I was never seen. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard, but you were never there. You did not allow me the space to be visible in your eyes so that you can see me for who I am. So the gravity of words it's very important. It's quite crucial. And I love what you said, that everything that we see now stems from a family structure. That is quite true. The chaos that we are in now in the world, it stems from a family structure. And indeed, we need platforms like this. We need more men like you to come out, because men are afraid to come out and speak because they are afraid to be deemed as weak. And ego is everything to women. So
we've been boxed. We've been kept in a box for a very long time. And it's so difficult for us to really, be in these platforms and talk about what we are going through as men.
Yes. So that's why we created such spaces, so that both male and females can come freely here and just speak their mind and just speak whatever they're going through and just heal. The ultimate aim is to find healing for people, find means of getting you help so that you can rediscover who you are and live your life to the best of your abilities. Wandile, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you being vulnerable with us. I appreciate your truth. And thank you for owning it so beautifully. I mean, I have learned a lot. You have been through a lot. And I thank God that you do not look like what you've been through. And you have evolved. I mean, I'm seeing healing. Even when you speak about your story, I can see healing. And you are definitely right. I want to echo what your late pastor said, that you went through this so that you can be an eye-opener for other people, to give other people hope, to give other men hope that this is doable. I mean, this is not a fire that's going to burn you. Ultimately, you're going to pass through it and come out okay. So I thank you for sharing your nuggets of wisdom with us. Thank you for sharing your painful story with us. It is very excruciating. I mean, I tried in so many different ways to contain my emotions, but thank you so much. Thank you for your bravery. It's very admirable. I appreciate you coming to the platform. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ntabiseng, for having me. I do hope that, you know, I've helped someone out there. And, you know, honestly speaking is the only way. You know, it's the step to finding healing. You know, that's just how we are going to heal as a nation. We need to start speaking. So thank you so much for having me and for handling it with so much grace. Thank you so much, Ntabiseng.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.